Commanders meet quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women.
Commanders do not have to meet quotas for the infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. You said in your statement you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? You will have to change how you see women to do this job well, and I don't know if you are capable of that.
And Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York joins us now.
That
she
last
serves
part.
on the Appropriations, Intelligence, and Armed Services Committee.
Good morning to you. The audacity of Pete Hegseth to talk about standards, experience, and the ability to get the job done. Your concerns going into this hearing were clear. What are your concerns coming out of it?
Well, he couldn't answer the questions that many of the senators had about his qualifications, about his own readiness to do the job. I had a number of concerns about past public statements that seemed to disparage active duty service members. And if you're going to lead an organization of 3 million personnel, you can't disregard half of them that are serving because they happen to be female, or they happen to be Democrats, or they happen to be LGBTQ plus, or any other identity or group. You can't denigrate them. They are there to serve, to sacrifice, and it just makes him unqualified to lead if he doesn't value the service of everyone who's committed to give their life for this country.
It's an important aspect of the work that you do, Senator, and I appreciate it. Just the general push to make it very clear. And I love that last part when we came in. You know, you will have to change your attitude about women in order to do this job. And you state, I think rightly, I don't think you can do that. I don't think he can do that. And so what kind of pressure do you see on the other side of this for the Senate in its sort of oversight of the Department of Justice now, the Department of Defense, national security, with the menagerie of misfits that Donald Trump has served up to leadership posts in these various agencies and departments?
So most likely, the majority of his nominees will be confirmed. Most of them have all Republican votes lined up already. Not necessarily all, but most. I think Hegseth, for example, will pass because without Democratic votes. There might be one or two, but I don't think so. And he will have to do the job. I mean, it's a very hard job. And our job on the Senate Armed Services Committee is to provide oversight and accountability to make sure the decisions that are made with regard to national security, with regard to personnel, with regard to readiness are the right decisions. And we can constantly be providing feedback, and we write the laws that will govern the Department of Defense. For example, I spent years, over a decade, working with Joni Ernst and 65 senators in changing how we deal with justice in the military, the criminal justice system there. Those changes are being implemented. It's been up and running for about a year. It'll be essential that he continues to implement those changes so that anyone who serves can get justice in the criminal justice system.
Can you just take us into how the process is working with these confirmation hearings? Because I actually was shocked in the Hegseth hearing to learn that it was from the questioning of the Democratic senators that you all did not have your opportunity to meet with Pete Hegseth, that he did not come to see you, whereas there were other hearings. Pam Bondi, for example, she did make the effort to meet with just about all the Democratic senators on that committee. And so is the Trump team, their confirmations team, are they really working to try to work across the aisle to get some of these fixed? Or do you feel like it's more of a us versus them situation, which, and frankly, that's not how it usually works?
So it was very unusual that Hegseth was not made available to Democratic senators. I've always met with the defense secretary nominee before the hearings because I could have asked him all the questions I asked in the hearing, assess if there were areas of common ground, so I didn't have to address it. I only get 7 minutes. I had questions about cyber. I had questions about China. I had questions about the Middle East. I would have liked to ask all the questions about his perspective on these very hard problems that he will have to address, but there was no time for it. So all I got to do is ask the baseline questions. Are you going to support the service members that are serving under you? I mean, that's a basic requirement. Can you get your mind around the fact that you are the defense secretary of 3 million people, many of whom disagree with you or are women or are mothers or all these other bizarre things that he said, that women can't serve in the military, they can't serve in combat. They're absurdities. And so we had to address some of the big upfront questions because he wouldn't meet with us. However, many other nominees, I've met with a nominee for the Treasury Secretary, I've met for the SEC nominee, I've met with the CIA nominee. Those are really proceeding in the normal course. And I think there'll be a number of nominees that I can vote for because they are qualified and they do have the experience necessary to do the job. They may not have the same perspective that I have, but that's the nature of elections. When Trump becomes president, he gets to have the cabinet of his choice. And I just have to assess if are they qualified, will they do harm, or will they help New York State?
Well, to that point about will they do harm, I want you to take a listen to this exchange with Pam Bondi about Kash Patel.
Would you have hired someone into the Florida Attorney General's office who you knew had an enemies list?
Senator, to cut to the chase, you're clearly talking about Kash Patel. I don't believe he has an enemies list. He made a quote on TV, which I have not heard. I have known Kash, and I believe that Kash is the right person at this time for this job. You'll have the ability to question Mr. Patel.
And I'm questioning you right now about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Question one, do you believe her? Question two, what would you ask Kash Patel?
Well, I've not met with Pam Bondi, and I don't know. I don't know if she's ready for the full scope of what Attorney General will require of her. But I think my colleagues on the Judiciary Committee did ask her a very wide range of questions. And I think the one that Sheldon just asked her was exactly right. President Trump has put himself out as someone who is going to have retribution. He is going to punish his adversaries. And that's why Kash Patel is so concerning, because if he's going to be the hatchet man for Trump, enforcing this enemies list, that's frightening. You're talking about authoritarianism. You're talking about something that this country has never seen and never wants to see. I thought Pam's response was appropriate to say there will never be an enemies list in the Department of Justice. Wasn't at the hearing, so I don't know if she satisfied senators in their questions. But you need people to at least say that, at a minimum, to say there will not be enemies lists. But that is why a number of Democrats have such serious concerns about Kash Patel and some of the other nominees Trump has put forward.